All right, welcome back, everybody. It is Thursday, and if you stand on your tiptoes, you can almost see the Memorial Day weekend from here.
And it looks really, really good.
Yes, it does. Yes, it do. Although, doesn't matter because your intrepid friends from KGVO will be working anyway. But, okay, I'd like some cheese with my wine, if you don't mind. Well, we have a special guest on the air today, and we are absolutely thrilled and privileged not only to have him on the radio today, but we're actually going to get him to come to Missoula.
Well, it's just a great coincidence. We have Memorial Day coming up. He happens to be a featured speaker at one of the ceremonies, one of the 11 ceremonies in Missoula. But also, we have really horrible things going on in Iraq right now.
Yes, we do.
Specifically in Anbar province and in the city of Ramadi, where the gentleman who is about to speak with us actually fought a while ago. He'll give us some specifics. I don't know the actual years that he was there, but he was there, if I'm not mistaken, before the surge, long before Iraqi forces retreated out of the city and ISIS took over. So I wanted to get our guest Aaron Flint on the air to tell us what this feels like for an American serviceman to watch what's happening in Iraq and to watch what you fought so hard for in the past to apparently just crumble into dust right before your eyes. So Aaron, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for your service.
John and Peter, thanks so much for having me on. Honor to be on Talkback. A big fan of the work you guys do, and I think most guys and gals who probably served in Ramadi, Iraq, are just shaking their heads right now. I mean, the headline on the Wall Street Journal editorial page is "Losing in Iraq Again," and the reason people are shaking their heads is let's take a step back to pre-surge Ramadi, Iraq. I was in pre-surge Ramadi, Iraq, 05-06, and they called it the Wild West. When folks asked where I was going, I said, "Oh, I'm heading to Ramadi." They're like, "Oh man, that place is the Wild West," and it literally was. I mean, to paint the picture, we had one soldier that was with us ended up linking up with a mountain infantry unit out of Vermont. And they controlled their own sector. We had our own sector of the city that was ours, and with a very light footprint. So for 8-9 hours a day, our platoon was out there, and it was just our platoon. So literally 6 vehicles, 2 Bradley fighting vehicles and 4 Humvees to control a large sector of the city. But one of the other soldiers in another platoon, this guy found 76 IEDs while he was in Ramadi. Now, of course, when we say he found 76 IEDs, I think about 18 or 19 of those blew up on his vehicle. One of those IEDs that he found, he was literally standing right on top of it and reached down. They don't recommend this technique, but he literally reached down and pulled the cords out, pulled the wires out of the IED right there below his feet.
Wow.
And so I mean, it was just every single day you would find something out there. If you took your eye off the road for 30 seconds, there would be an IED in the road. And Ramadi was just a mess. We suffered tremendous casualties. In fact, of course, we've got a Gold Star family right there. All you got to do is look out your door and walk down the hall, and you'll see one of our incredible Gold Star families that have sacrificed so much in Anbar province. And so, you see these headlines, but to fast forward, then we had the surge, and I think most of the soldiers, if you would have talked with most of our soldiers back then in Ramadi, they said, "This place is lost. This place is a mess." And then to have the surge take place, and all of a sudden the dramatic, remarkable turnaround in Ramadi to where I replaced a platoon leader who, because I went in as a volunteer, replacement, and so I ended up going in as a platoon leader and replacing a guy who literally got blown up. His Humvee, flipped in the air, rolled over. He was really messed up, but was back stateside, got through surgery. He got healed up, and within a couple years was back in Baghdad because he wanted to get right back in the fight. And anyway, I was Facebook messaging this friend this morning. I've never actually met him, but we chat all the time via Facebook because I've just got so much respect for him. And he put it best. He said these are the same guys that we kicked out of Ramadi and fought back then. That are now trying to come back and retake Ramadi, and it's just, the remarkable thing is that there were some folks who never thought Ramadi would be won by the U.S. and coalition forces, and it remarkably did happen, and now it just feels like they've just thrown it all away.
I want to ask you, Aaron, there's this strategy I've heard about called the Sons of Iraq strategy, where they basically tried to pull the Sunnis that were in Ramadi and in Anbar province away from the extremists, what was then Al-Qaeda, which later kind of became ISIS. I was wondering if you were part of that pull to try to convince the Sunnis to join in with the U.S. forces in fighting for their cities.
Well, that basically happened. I mean, I think the Marines were a big part of that. The Marine Corps leadership, that was something that was done at very high levels. But at the end of the day, every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine, I think, was a part of that. Because, for example, when you're out driving around, and it might even just be throwing a box of Girl Scout cookies out to the kids, I think those actions are passing out some teddy bears as unserious as that might seem. I think when you look at when you show the contrast between the self-sacrifice of the American service member and the heart of the American service member on the streets of Ramadi compared to what Al-Qaeda was doing, what did happen while I was there, Al-Qaeda. They literally what they did was there was a glass factory, a large factory that had been abandoned, of course, because of the war, but a glass factory that had employed a lot of people in Ramadi. Well, they did an Iraqi police recruitment event because it was all about getting more Sunnis involved in the government, right, and getting more Sunnis involved in the security forces so that it wasn't just this Shiite-dominated thing, and so it could bring all people into the fold. Well, they had a suicide bomber literally killed dozens and dozens of people at that Iraqi police recruit. So here was these Al-Qaeda operatives and insurgents basically, slaughtering fellow Sunnis just because they wanted to join the local police forces. So I think there was that contrast. Wait a minute, these guys who throw out Girl Scout cookies to us in the midst of battling back IEDs and taking out terrorist targets in the middle of the night versus these guys, Al-Qaeda, that are sending suicide bombers against our kids who just want a job to work with the Iraqi police force and secure their own community. So I think all of that played into now when you had those high-level negotiations, as I've read about the Anbar Awakening and brokering these deals with the tribal leaders. I think every little step had a part in that.
I think there's been a problem with the way that Americans think about Iraq, and I think it boils down to the political backdrop of it. I would not ask most servicemen a question like this, but since you happen to be a political talk show host, I think you're probably well-suited to take the question. I'm going to ask the question. We'll get to it after the break. But basically, in America, if Democrats talk about the problems in Iraq, it goes back to Bush's fault. Look what Cheney said. They lied. They deceived. They got us into a situation we shouldn't have been.
Kids died, stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you talk to Republicans, they'll say, look at what Obama did. He had the surge, he had the win, and he just let it go. It's evaporated. All of the things we sacrificed for are gone, and it's his fault. And I want to know what you think. Do you pin the blame on one side or the other, or do you split the difference somehow? I mean, obviously, you have a sense of loss over what's happened to this country and to the servicemen and your brothers and sisters that died in that fight. So I want to see how you deal with that politically when we get back from this quick break.
By the way, we have two lines open if you want to visit with Aaron Flint and say thank you and congratulations and bless you for all he's done. 721-1290. We'll be right back. 721-1290 is our number, and this is Talk Back. It's Western Montana's only live interactive radio talk show based right here in Missoula. John King is right there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us on the phone, Aaron Flint, who's in Billings. But Aaron, you're going to be here on Monday, right?
Yeah, I'll be there for the weekend. It's always great to be back in Missoula and see family and friends. And all three of my kids were born in Missoula, so it's a great place to be and get back to. But also I know Missoula gets a bad rap across the state for being a bunch of radical leftists because they kind of have the loudest voice sometimes. But I'll tell you what, you won't find greater patriots. I mean, look at 11 ceremonies taking place on Monday in honor of Memorial Day, and folks down in the Bitterroot. There's some incredible patriots down there. The University of Montana campus and the memorial there for Iraq and Afghanistan, veterans and fallen warriors. It's just incredible. And first off, let me just say, hey, anybody out there, if you see a service member this weekend, I think a lot of them will tell you, don't worry about saying thank you to us on Memorial Day because Monday is not about Veterans Day is Veterans Day. Monday is about the fallen. It's about those Gold Star families, and it's about those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and it's totally devoted to them. And then just one other thing, hey, any opinion I say today, of course, is just me speaking as a veteran who happens to be a radio talk show host. I don't represent any official military entity or anything like that. If I happen to squeak out an opinion here or there,
that particular shrine there on the University of Montana campus. It's touching in that way. It shows the family members looking on at a fallen family member.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw it, I was actually running through campus, and I just had to stop. I was in a race, but it'll take your breath away.
That's what I kind of like about it, is it just kind of pops up on you, and you're walking to a Grizz game, and in the morning, and you see it, and it just gives you a chance to have that quiet reflection and pause. This summer, speaking of Memorial Day, this August, I believe, is the 10-year anniversary after we've lost Lieutenant Josh Hyland, who was just he literally was the top ROTC cadet at the University of Montana when I was there. He'd already been in the Army Ranger Battalion, Ranger Tab, Ranger qualified. Just a solid guy, solid leader, and so I think it's, even though it's been 10 years, we look at Memorial Day and it just seems like yesterday. But I think for those Vietnam veterans and others, when we were on that Big Sky Honor Flight last year, I saw a old World War II veteran from Choteau, Montana, point one of those little handheld American flags up at the Vietnam Wall, and he pointed to his son's name on there, and
wow.
I could tell it was still pretty fresh for him too. So
well, I want you to take the tough question now.
yeah.
So tell us how you view this, and where you fall on the whole debate between the political icons that were behind the war, or in charge of dictating that war, and
or is anybody
how things played out.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you, John. Like, okay, everybody's going to be blaming everybody. It's kind of like infrastructure in the Montana legislature, right? Everybody's blaming everybody. But my whole point is, okay, let's put the blame game aside. What's the situation right now, and what do we need to do for the long term? Look, because the Democrats and the media will ask the Republican candidates, knowing what we know now, would you have made the decision to invade Iraq? Okay, and there'll be answers to that question. And then Liz Cheney threw out the question that should be asked of the Democratic candidate, saying, knowing what we know now, was it right for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama to abandon Iraq? And I would almost argue that the fall of Ramadi, I think the shock factor of that didn't take place this week. We saw that coming here over the last few months, and we really saw it happening when some might argue there was a premature withdrawal of forces from Iraq to really stand up the forces there. But I think a third question needs to be thrown out there. And again, this is my political opinion here, but I think the third question also needs to be thrown out. Knowing what we know now and the success of the surge, for example, there were a lot of people who said, Ramadi will never turn. Americans will never win in Ramadi, and then it did happen. I think the third question that needs to be thrown there is, knowing what we know now, was it wrong for people, for the left, for Democrats, to undercut the war effort in its early years? I mean, look, at the end of the day, when I have some radical leftist call into the show and say, George W. Bush sent you to Iraq, well, you know what? So did Max Baucus, and so did Hillary Clinton. So both parties sent us there. Yeah. What are we going to do now? And why did some folks start so early undercutting the war effort? And look, we've still got boots on the ground, unless they were wearing flip-flops over in Syria the other day. There's still boots on the ground over in that region. And where are all these peace centers that did all these war protests in Missoula back then to undercut the war effort when there was a man by the name of Bush in the White House? But now that there's a man by the name of Obama in the White House, they're not there. I just think when both parties send us to war, when our country makes that decision, we need to do all we can to back it up and fight it to win it, and see it through.
I know we have to let you go here because you have to get ready for your own show, which is.
We can keep going as long as you guys want. I don't start until 9:06.
So. No, that's okay. That's all right.
9:06. Well, we'll take over Voices of Montana.
You should.
My question for you is, okay, well, all that aside, now that Ramadi is in, if you will, enemy hands again, do you believe it's possible for something like another surge headed by the United States to liberate that city again?
That's a good question. That's certainly a question that I'm going to throw to Congressman Ryan Zinke when I have him on Voices of Montana later this morning. However, I think the big picture that does need to be looked at. I don't think, first off, that any Americans I don't think there's any appetite for a large-scale conventional ground campaign like we've seen in recent years. Not only is the appetite not there, but I think the real question, though, is, okay, if we are putting troops over there to combat ISIS and in some of these support roles, maybe we shouldn't be tying their hands, and maybe we should allow them to get the job done as they see fit, and listen to what the Pentagon has to say.
Rules of engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In what way? What do you mean tying their hands?
Well, and all I can say, I don't have any firsthand experience on this, but all I can say is based on the news reports that we've read, is that you've got special operations forces who are over there that you know, their hands are tied, or they're being stuck to stay on a base, or they're not able to do this, or they're not able to do that. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to send people there, let's don't just send them there just so we can have a headline saying we're combating ISIS. Let's allow them to go there and get the job done, instead of just sending people there just to send them. I don't think anybody wants to see that. But it also goes back to this bigger question. Okay, Ramadi. Okay, yes, you had the mother of the Navy SEAL who was killed in Ramadi, who says, you know, my son died for Ramadi, and now ISIS has it. So there's that factor. But there's also, let's look at the big picture here, and putting the blame game aside, and who was right, who was wrong. Okay, well, we've got ISIS. They want to establish a global caliphate. They want to push into Europe. They're already pushing into Africa and elsewhere, radical Islam. Are we content to just allow radical Islam to just grow and fester and become a greater threat, even as they want to threaten us right here on our own shores? I think most Americans are saying no, and so now the question is, okay, let's stop the blame game. What do we do now?
Yeah, I think it's really, really tough. We have another break here, but, I mean, a lot of people are looking at what happened in Ramadi. The way we took that city and won it was with a large ground force that the locals felt comfortable in supporting. As soon as they were gone, the Iraqi general, just drove his truck out with his team and left the city for ISIS. So when the only solution appears to be a lot of U.S. service people putting their life on the line, it's scary.
We're going to come right back. It's Talk Back, and we are running really, really short of time. Aaron Flint is joining us for the next about minute and a half, so I want to get Dave on. Dave, you're on with Aaron Flint. Go ahead.
Yes, a lot of Iraqis, Shiite, Kurds, and Sunnis have all died in Iraq. Is there a possibility for peace?
Thanks, Dave. So what do you think, Aaron? Is there an opportunity for peace there?
Is there an opportunity for peace there? I mean, that's a good question. I think if you would have asked a lot of guys in Ramadi back in 05-06, is there an opportunity for peace in Ramadi, Iraq, they would have said, heck no. Look at this place. Look at this mess. And then literally a year and a half, 2 years later, I'm getting emails from guys in Baghdad who also served in Ramadi. They said, hey, the guys out, and we couldn't even leave the base. We couldn't even get out of our vehicles in the daytime for longer than 30 seconds without having a sniper right on our back. And now these guys are out there doing PT runs out in the city. A lot of folks would have thought that never would have happened, or it never would have come that far. So if that could have happened then and there, I think it is possible. It's hard to see that. That's true.
Would you support another large invasion, a ground troop? I mean, that's how we got to that point.
At the end of the day, that's how it happened in Ramadi. That's how, like I mentioned, we had, 4 Humvees? I had 2 Humvees when we were roving the city, in our side of the city. We had 2 Humvees to drive around. I mean, it'd be like if you look at the South Hills of Missoula and you say, okay, John, Peter, that's your sector. Here's your 6 vehicles. You get the Rattlesnake, and you get downtown, and here's your 2 Humvees to go drive around with.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and yet when we had, I think, at least 4 times the number of forces relieve us when we left out of there.
All right. Hey, Aaron, I'm sorry to do this to you. We're completely out of time, but listen, we are really anticipating your visit and hearing your message at the courthouse on Memorial Day. We look forward to seeing you in person.
And that'll be politics-free, of course, but we're looking forward to it. And big thanks to Susan Renault and everybody.
You bet. All right. Thanks a lot, Aaron. That's Aaron Flint, and he's visiting with us from Billings. And we're going to take a little break, come right back with more of Talk Back. We have another hour of, open phone.
That's right.
So we will be right back looking for your input. Stay with us. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only John King.
Actually, there's many John Kings out there.
I know, but you're the one and only in this room.
I am the only John King in this room. I am not John King, correspondent with CNN or anchorman for other television shows.
Totally sets him apart from the rest of the John Kings in the world. So,
anyway, the only Peter Christian.
So you wanted to just kind of continue. You had an interesting thing from CNN, right?
I did. I wanted to play this. CNN did a little news cut the other night, just basically kind of explaining why Ramadi is such a big deal, especially for American service people. You heard Aaron kind of give his take on things, and having seen what happened there, how difficult it was, and then watch it go through a peaceful era, and then watching it fall and crumble into one of the most violent places in the world right now, it's got to be pretty tough. Well, that's, the one guy's perspective. This is kind of a little bit of a stand back, kind of look at the geopolitics of the area and why it's such a fundamental city. So if you could play that cut for us, Peter, that'd be great.
Here we go.
So why is Ramadi such a key battleground in the fight against ISIS? Well, it's hugely significant, both to the United States as well as to the Iraqi government. First of all, Ramadi is the capital of Anbar province, which is the largest province in Iraq, but not necessarily the most densely populated one. And the government of Haider el-Abadi, the prime minister, declared that Anbar was going to be the next place it would try to take back from ISIS. So losing the capital of Anbar was certainly a big blow to the Iraqi government. Also, now that ISIS holds this city, they now have 3 provincial capitals in Iraq and in Syria. And we also have to keep in mind that Ramadi has a population of about 500,000, and many of those people are either on the run or are under the control of the extremists. However, Ramadi also has major importance to the U.S. and especially to many U.S. service members who fought in Iraq. In the years between 2004 and 2006, it was one of the worst battlegrounds for U.S. forces in all of Iraq. Thousands of United States Marines as well as soldiers fought there trying to hold the town and take it back from Sunni insurgents. And many of those insurgents came from a precursor organization of ISIS, which was called Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And it was really after very tough battles with a lot of casualties that the U.S. managed to win. And Ramadi also became a turning point in the war in Iraq when the U.S. employed a new strategy, which was called the Sons of Iraq, or the Sunni Awakening Program, where they actually started to talk to a lot of the Sunni tribes that were allied against them and made them join forces with the U.S. as well as with the Iraqi government, turn on the insurgents, and therefore win back Anbar province from Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So certainly there will be a lot of U.S. veterans out there looking at what's happening in Ramadi right now with great anger.
One of the things that you can't see, because this was a video, not a radio promotion or a radio news bit.
Right.
The city is like right in the center of Iraq. So it's very central. Something really scary across the border in Iran, a similar important city right in the center of Iran, also taken over by ISIS in more recent time. This whole fall of Ramadi happened about 5 or 6 days ago, after like 18 months of fighting, which you probably never heard about. And then the fall of a very important city called Palmyra,
right?
An ancient UN. It's a UN World Heritage Site. Basically, all these ancient ruins, and it's kind of interesting geopolitically in the area because this is one of the havens for the rebels. These are not the ISIS rebels, but the rebels against Assad. Before. So there was this back and forth between Assad and the rebels, and then ISIS comes in.
Wow.
And so you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place if you have to choose Assad or ISIS. And America has the same problem. America doesn't want to fight ISIS there with even an air campaign, because any assisting attacking ISIS is like helping Assad, right, which we've already said we want him out because he crossed a red line and needs to be deposed. So really interesting, difficult politics.
There is an ancient dictum called "the enemy of my enemy is my friend." Okay, so but if the enemy of my enemy is my friend's enemy is my friend's enemy's friend, what is he to me? And I'm going, what? So you have to have a program to figure out who's, Sunni and Shia and Syria and Iraq and Iran. And it is so, for the average person on the ground in Missoula, Montana, or anywhere in America, it is incredibly confusing because we don't understand all the different factions that are going on in this country. And so when we send troops on the ground to do a certain job or a certain deal to free an area, free the area from what? And for whom? And for how long? And will it be another deal that, someday, if the job is done, those troops are going to have to go home? Is it just going to the vacuum just going to come right back in again.
Well,
Do we have to have some sort of occupational force staying there forever and ever, amen, or what?
well, and another thing,
These are all difficult questions.
the foreign policy of the United States has changed significantly. It's become much more of a political game, I think, than in the past. Now, of course, it was always political, but during the Cold War, you kind of teamed up. I mean, there was a staying force. There still is in Germany.
There were two teams.
There's a staying force, and there still is in
Right.
Japan. We had these united fronts that were willing to take long campaigns for long strategic
It
goals.
was the Axis and the Allies, right?
But now, whoever comes into politics or power next in the United States has to deal with the fact that the world doesn't trust American leadership as much as it did in the past, because it can tell that it's going to change every 4 to 8 years, and likely with negative incomes for your permanence.
Tell you what, we have Tyler and Dave both waiting to visit. I want to give you both plenty of time to make your comments, so please, with your patience, we also have one line open, 721-1290. We'll come right back and talk with our listeners in a moment. This is Talkback, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. Of course, we also have your opportunity to make a comment on your Facebook page.
We got a few comments from Mitchell. He says, Obama has squandered every American drop of blood, every dime in the Middle East. Furthermore, the statement that there were no WMDs in Iraq is false. They just weren't nuclear WMDs. It's like the hands up, don't shoot statement. So,
Okay.
all right, let's go to the call bank.
Here we go. Let's go get Tyler on the line. Tyler, you're up first. Go ahead, sir. Thanks.
Hi, guys. So I had an interesting interaction yesterday with veterans, and in the background, I had the news on, and they were talking about Ramadi, and this gentleman made a comment to me that struck me. I mean, I was so dumbfounded when he literally said, "I don't care about Ramadi. I don't care about what happened in Ramadi. Show me, some interesting news of the day." And I had a conversation with him and said, "Well, why is it that you don't care about Ramadi?" And he goes, "Because I don't know anything about the battle. I don't know anything about the town. It doesn't interest me at all." And I said, even with Memorial Day coming up, it doesn't matter to you that how many people we lost over there and how many people died. And he goes, "Yeah, but those facts are unknown. The fight for Ramadi, the fight to keep it, the fight to secure it, it's all vague to Americans." And this he was a veteran.
Wow.
But when it comes down to it, general everyday Americans, like even right now, all we're doing right now is trying to play catch up and try and inform the public as to why Ramadi was such a big town to lose. And being in that situation, it kind of explains why Americans are quote unquote war weary. I don't believe that is true. I think that if somebody could lay out a specific definition and explanation as to what's going on in the East or Middle East and why it's so important.
Well, if I could just jump in here for
Go ahead.
a second, because Aaron kind of addressed this.
I know. I tried to get on when he was on, but the phones weren't working.
Yeah. We had to busy them because there was so much noise in the line. But anyway, what he said was, casting all blame aside, let's look to the future. If us going over there now and taking care of business and trying to eliminate ISIS as much as we can over there will keep them from coming over here, which we keep hearing they're going to do and trying to do in establishing camps, whether you believe them or not, that sort of thing. Then maybe the American populace would say, okay, then it's a worthwhile investment to fight that battle over there so that it doesn't come over here. Now, I don't know if that's if that makes sense to people or not, but it kind of makes sense to me.
Even if they don't come over here, I mean, the thing that makes ISIS so scary is its ability to spread these embers all across the world through modern internet and
Facebook,
other forms of communication, and inspiring these groups, whether it be in Northern Africa or in the United States. When it comes to that shooting outside of that cartoonist exhibit in Texas, or whether it goes to the incident that happened in France, or whatever it might be, anytime something like this doesn't go unpunished, it only encourages more of it. And if you look at the map and you see it's like someone just lit a fire in on the border of Iraq and Syria, and you've got this slow burn expanding out and out and out and out.
Yeah.
How far are we willing to let that go is the big question the world needs to ask itself.
So go ahead, Tyler, real quick, wrap up.
Okay, I think that you have an American public who looks at the President of the United States, who goes to the commencement ceremony of the Coast Guard and tells a fleet of sailors that are about to embark on defending the borders and the coasts of the United States, and who tells them that their biggest threat is global warming. That's where your confusion comes in. It's on purpose.
We'll play that for you. Maybe we have time.
Right
actually,
now,
let's do it right now. We'll play that cut. Thanks for the
I'm
segue
gonna let you go,
there,
Tyler. We'll listen to this together. Okay, this is part of the speech. The biggest enemy we face, ladies and gentlemen.
He didn't say the biggest.
He didn't?
I don't think he did.
All right.
He did say one of the greatest, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, what was it Pogo said? We have met the enemy and he is us?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Here we
the
go.
Coast Guard is getting ready to fight.
The beauty of the sea. But you also know its unforgiving power. Here at the Academy, climate change, understanding the science and the consequences is part of the curriculum, and rightly so, because it will affect everything that you do in your careers. Some of you have already served in Alaska and aboard icebreakers, and you know the effects. As America's maritime guardian, you've pledged to remain always ready. Semper Paratus, ready for all threats. And climate change is one of those most severe threats. And this is not just a problem for countries on the coasts or for certain regions of the world. Climate change will impact every country on the planet. No nation is immune. So I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security, an immediate risk to our national security. And make no mistake, it will impact how our military defends our country. And so we need to act, and we need to act now. After all, isn't that the true hallmark of leadership? When you're on deck, standing your watch, you stay vigilant. You plan for every contingency. And if you see storm clouds gathering or dangerous shoals ahead, you don't sit back and do nothing. You take action to protect your ship, to keep your crew safe. Anything less is negligence. It is a dereliction of duty. And so too with climate change. Denying it or refusing to deal with it endangers our national security. It undermines the readiness of our forces.
So doggone it, get out there and start recycling.
Are we throwing snowballs into the ocean? Or what is the Coast Guard going to do? I have no idea.
Doggone it.
Like, we want you to go home, grab your ice trays, dump them into the ocean.
I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I just shake my head. I guess maybe, and some people will tell me, and maybe they're right, I'm so completely out of touch that I don't understand speeches like that.
I understand the politics side of it. I mean, I get why he's pushing for it. And I think that there are some reasons for concern when it comes to the way that humans deal with the environment. But how does the U.S. Coast Guard fit into that picture? You're at a graduation ceremony to honor these guys who are probably going to face real threats, unlike melting in the sun. They're probably going to be facing a threat of perhaps having to deal with a smuggler or having to deal with a drug runner,
right. or people trying to bring people in surreptitiously over the borders.
Iran capturing a U.S. flagged ship.
Yeah, something like that.
During a negotiation process with the U.S.
Yeah,
there's things that they might actually have to deal with, and actually have some power over.
But if they bring, line one, if they bring their umbrella, then it might help. So we're going to take a break, and Dave and Daryl will get you guys on, and we'll be right back. Okay, talk back rolling right along this morning. We've made people wait a long time. Let's just jump right back into the phones. And Dave, first of all, thanks for your patience, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning again. I'd like to remind people that, Russia is also losing in Syria. So it's not just a U.S. problem. And in my view, a Christian army going back into Iraq will not fix Iraq in the long run. It's just not going to work.
So does it have to be a Muslim army?
Yes, it has to be a Muslim army. Muslims have to fix the problem, and that starts at their leadership.
So let me ask you this, and please forgive me for being fatalistic. What happens if they can't solve the problem? Then it eventually becomes a bigger problem that we still have to solve.
Well, this part about invading the United States, I heard that during the Vietnam War that the commies would come into downtown Los Angeles if we didn't fight them in Vietnam. But I didn't really believe that then, and I don't believe it now. I think...
So are you a live and let live kind of guy? Just do your thing and leave us alone?
No, I'm not. But
okay.
I think we should find people we can support. I'm firmly supported giving more ammo and more equipment to the Kurds, and I support tribal members in the Sunni population.
So, Dave, let me throw this at you
Sure.
real quick, because that's what we were doing in Ramadi. We had the Iraqi security forces. We were giving them our support. These were the, quote, moderates in the area, end quote. And we were giving them training and support. And what you had was a situation where the extremists, the ISIS side of the Sunni faith, pushed out. Literally, they drove away. I mean, they didn't lose. They drove away, retreated, because they didn't want to stand and fight for the city.
Well, there's more to it than that.
So if they're not willing to do it on their own, and you don't want to help, are you willing to just let the extremists take over?
No, there's more to the story. What they needed, what the people in Ramadi needed to protect their city, was anti-tank weapons that could knock out the suicide bombing. There was a whole fleet of trucks coming towards Ramadi that were ready to blow themselves up and take the city with them.
Well, I think there were at least 10 suicide bombs, 5 of which were the size of the Oklahoma City bombing that went off in the weeks before the retreat.
Certainly, but when the main force came in, they were right up front, heading for the city. And if the people we like, the tribal members that had the kind of weapons they need to have, they could have stopped them at the gates of Ramadi, all on their own.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call. All right, let's move on. And
10 years down the road, if it's not U.S. forces doing the work, who do you know you're leaving those weapons to? Are you leaving them for ISIS to take when they capture? Are you leaving them for the next Osama bin Laden?
What's really interesting is much of the equipment that ISIS is driving and shooting and killing
Stuff
people
they stole.
with is ours.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'm
Russians.
sorry. I shouldn't get... Yeah. All right, now let's get Daryl on. Daryl, good morning. Hi.
Good morning, Peter. I got a suggestion about last night. I was lucky enough to march in with my daughters.
Oh, wonderful.
Special Olympics.
Wasn't that a spectacular show?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have one suggestion for next year, though.
Okay.
When they have the students waiting out in Grizzly Stadium, it would be nice if they have the opening ceremonies on the screen so we can see what's going on in it.
You know what? I will certainly bring that up, and there isn't any reason why they couldn't.
Because my son was playing in the band in there.
Oh,
we didn't
okay.
hear anything until they started announcing all the speakers.
Wow.
Because we were sitting out in the Grizzly Stadium watching the football players on the screen. I don't know why they had that on there. But.
Well, there isn't any reason why we couldn't have have had a live feed into there. Well,
yeah, and then maybe have speakers right outside the doors.
And let me tell you this: that the opening ceremonies and the summer games are going to be in Missoula for 2 years after this. So
yes,
we will learn from this, and we will get better next year.
How many people ended up turning out for that? Was it was it packed?
Let me just put it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Peter.
Now, I was just going to say this. I estimated between 5,000 and 6,000 people.
They have 171 teams there, I know that.
Right. And there were 1,200 athletes, 171 teams, moms, dads, parents, or friends,
And the facility
coaches.
can support 7,400. Right?
Yeah, the 7,400 is the seating, I believe, capacity of of the Adams Center. So. But it wasn't completely full, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, I know when they sat us, we were pretty up high on the side to your left when we were sitting down. So.
Cool. Well, we had a ball, and listen, thank you for your sacrifice, and thanks for doing everything and helping the kids out. I'm sure this whole week has just been nothing but a blast for those guys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks so much for your call.
You bet.
All right, take care. All right, Kathleen, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hey, I just kind of jumped in the middle, but I got there for Obama's clip of his
Oh,
speech.
you like that, huh?
What?
I see
No, it
you
was
like
painful.
that, huh?
It was painful, very painful.
All right.
So, Mike, I think it's a tool to gauge how numb the American people are. If people will sit and listen to that speech and agree with that speech, that climate change is our number one priority, then we're ready. We're ready for whatever they have for us, because that's insanity. I do agree with both John and Dave. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's a complex situation over there. I don't know what we do. But I think, Dave, the commies are in downtown L.A. I think they were right. They will invade, and they're there. They're here too.
They just didn't do it in tanks. Yeah. Anyway, they did it in tank tops maybe, but anyway, we're going to come right back with more of Talk Back in a moment. Carl and Dave, another Dave. Anyway, we're going to come right back with more of Talk Back here in just a moment. Stay with us. Our number is 721-1290. Hey, it's Talk Back. Rocking right along. Only about 25 minutes left in the program. Thanks for joining us. 721-1290. Go ahead, John.
Kitty says, Mr. Obama needs to look in the mirror about leadership and dereliction of duty. By the way, we need to work on your salute as a former USAFA Honor Guard member. And she's talking about your picture here on Facebook.
I know.
What did you do wrong?
I probably didn't have my thumb in correctly, and I probably had my arm at the wrong angle. But it was an impromptu salute. It was
very impromptu.
It was an unofficial salute.
John said, we need to take a military photo in 12 seconds. Give me something, Peter.
I said, well, I could salute. So, yes, for those of you who are veterans, my humble apologies for not having a proper salute.
Peter and I, very non-military looking.
I should head directly to boot. Well, okay, let's get Carl on the line. Carl, thanks for holding. Go ahead, sir.
I wanted to go back to Iraq. A couple things. I think if you look at who has the expertise and the ability to go back in and clear the situation up, we're probably one of only a couple or three groups that actually has the ability. And then you go back to the Americans are kind of war weary. Well, there's a couple good reasons for that. They've seen the mismanagement of what's been going on over there. I agree that when Obama came in office, it was in a pretty good state, and by pulling out and the things that he's done, it's gotten worse and worse over time, and that's the mismanagement aspect of it. And then you got to look at, no matter how much we want to help people, when you're broke, you really don't have the ability to. And these people over there have all this revenue from oil. Why do they not share the brunt of the cost of these wars?
I'm not sure that they don't share the blunt. I mean, honestly, if the city falls to ISIS, no one gets hit more directly than the Iraqis that aren't part of ISIS. I mean, literally, they get hit. They die.
I know, but when we go in and fight the war, we're not reimbursed for anything when they have the ability to do so.
Well, I mean, I don't think Iraq is really rolling in the money either. I mean, there's a lot of companies that went into Iraq after we went in there. After, things got partitioned out, French companies, Russian companies, other individuals, I remember all those debates about...
the rank and file Iraqis probably don't own their own oil.
Well, and they probably don't, a lot of them probably don't even know how to run the systems that you need to know in the infrastructure to get it out and make money off of it.
So
it's all large companies.
Yeah. Well, Carl, you've brought up some good points. We appreciate your call. Thank you. And let's get Dave on the line. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
What's on your mind, sir?
I regret that I wasn't able to get on when your first guest speaker was on.
Yes, Aaron Flint. Yeah, go ahead.
For his service. I'm an old Marine Corps Vietnam vet. Fought through the Tet Offensive in 1968 in Hue City, which was really a terrible battle. And I know how the people feel that lost sons, daughters. Well, I don't know how many daughters were lost over there, but I know a lot of sons were. And what I see is just history repeating itself. When our leadership loses its focus and just kind of loses direction, when the country loses its focus and loses its direction.
Now, Dave, here's my problem. I have never served, okay? Although I'm surrounded by family members who did. My mom and dad were both in the Marine Corps. My brother was in the Army, okay? I did not serve. So there's a whole, raft of the conversation go with that. So when I talk about things like, why don't we do this and that and the other thing, I feel at a tremendous loss because I have never put myself out there like people like you and others who actually served. So I'm very hesitant to say things like, well, let's talk about rules of engagement. Let's talk about what you're allowed to do when you're in country. When you in the quote in the olden days when there was battles, you fought a battle to win, and you killed the enemy, and you took their stuff, and you removed their opportunity to fight back, and that's how wars were won. And obviously, we just don't seem to be able to do that anymore, right? So. Well, are we just living in a totally different world now, or what?
Well, the big difference is back then, when you won the war, you occupied and took over the area that you conquered.
Exactly.
Now we're in a situation where we're fighting wars for other people that don't necessarily want us to be fighting there,
right?
And sometimes don't want to keep the area that we conquered for them.
So anyway, so Dave, am I all wrong, all wet in that? And if I am, I'm certainly willing to accept that.
No, you're not all wet on that. But it is. It seems like if you go back to World War II, that's when you did fight to win, and we conquered. We beat our enemies, and yes, we occupied territory for a long time, and like I believe one of you mentioned. We kept troops in Germany. We kept troops after Korea. We kept troops in Korea, and those countries have done well. We're doing something different now, and I think the whole thing comes down to I sympathize with the vets that fought over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I agree that I've got family members. I'm from a Marine Corps family that has been in the service from World War I right on up through Vietnam, through Iraq, through both Iraq wars. Both Desert Storm and the invasion of Iraq to find the WMDs, which
Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Good, but we've lost the ability, it seems like, to hold the national conscience.
Well, they used to call it the national will, Dave. It's the will of the country to get behind a fighting force. And during World War II, the entire country joined in, with rubber drives and metal drives and rationing and war bonds and stamps and all. In other words, from the little kids to the moms and dads, everybody joined in that war.
But what I'm saying is, when we enter into armed conflict, like we did in Vietnam, like we have done, the latest thing was in Iraq, when we basically won, and then we pulled all of our troops out of there, and everything went back to the way that it was. More conflict, more sectarian violence. All of this bad stuff starts happening. Same thing happened in Vietnam. When we pulled out of there, we pulled all of our troops out. We got tired of the war. And our leadership decided, well, we'll make a peace, which everybody knew wasn't going to hold. And look at the human cost of that.
I know.
The Vietnamese people that backed us. So,
Dave?
I see when I see things like President Obama pulling all of these troops out, saying he ran on the platform of we're going to get all of the troops out of Iraq, and he did it. And now look what happened.
Yeah.
So
Dave, we're up against a break. Thanks for
national leadership.
Thank you for your service and your family, and we appreciate it. We're going to come right back, Mike, and another Dave. It's the Dave Show today. So.
Let's give away some free coffee.
Okay, quickly.
Free Rocket Coffee. Just call 721-1290. That's the Rocket Coffee stand in the Garden City Garden Supply right across from the Eastgate Shopping Center. All you have to do is call 721-1290. You don't have to decide what to do in Iraq. Just call that number. We'll give you free stuff.
All right, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. All right, we've got, we did have a winner a second ago,
That's right. Congratulations, Mary. Your free coffee and toast. Anybody else who wants to win can wait till tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. We are weighing in on, evidently, what's going on with the military and in Iraq and Ramadi. We had Aaron Flint on earlier. People have been talking about various things like rules of engagement. What do we do next? Who do we support? How do we support them? What are we supposed to do? The president spoke at the Coast Guard graduation, talked about climate change. So, Mike, please go ahead. What's on your mind, sir?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I was responding to your first Dave's comments about how he dismissed the spreading of communism for the Vietnam, and then your last Dave's caller, really drove home what I was going to say, that Vietnam, we were winning in Vietnam, and we pulled out too early. We capitulated. We let the anti-war activists and the liberals really get in there. One of the things in the 80s, or the spread of communism, when it was in Eastern Europe and then in China when millions were starving, and then the Korean Peninsula, Central America was starting to be taken over. We were capitulating back in the 70s, and then Reagan came into office, and it didn't take a really huge conflict. It just took a will of our leaders to confront the issue, and Reagan bought us enough time for communism to finally get crushed under its own weight, and freedom slowly began to take hold in all these countries.
In defense of the people that came before Reagan, I mean, Reagan wouldn't have been in a position to do what he did if we hadn't have forced the communist empire to spend all of its money in fights like Vietnam, elsewhere around the world, and dry up its regime.
It took political will, and it took an atmosphere where our friends could trust us around the world.
Right.
When Margaret Thatcher and Helmut Kohl and all the allies got together and spoke as one voice, it helped a lot. Now, I don't think anybody trusts our leadership. I don't think anybody trusts Mr. Obama to keep his word. I mean, he's lied over Obamacare, keeping your doctor, keeping your health plan, Benghazi's a cover-up, just so much. And our friends are saying, okay, who do we turn to now?
Well,
in a vacuum?
Ukraine is a great example. I mean, if a situation like Ukraine had happened under Reagan, a whole bunch of Eastern Bloc countries would have felt the fear that maybe the U.S. wouldn't actually be there when Russia decided to invade.
Oh, if Russia would have invaded a friend and ally of we would have been at DEFCON 2, 1. You know, it would have been scary times.
And here's
People would have hunkered down.
You know, comparing the two conflicts, I think is very helpful because one of the things that makes the lefty arguments when you're talking about the debate between U.S. and Russia was right. I mean, these are people you could sit down with, that you made trade deals. Both sides had nuclear weapons, and there was mutually assured destruction and a whole bunch of other policies. What are you going to sit down and talk with ISIS about? Like, we want you to scale down the beheadings to 2-a-days, or we want you to only demolish UN World Heritage sites that are within this boundary. I mean, there's just really almost no way to negotiate. There is no MAD. I mean, that's the difficulty there. It's the political talking points are radically different, and you don't even hear left telling us to sit down and talk with them. I mean, it's not even part of the game.
We're going to take a break. Dave, grab line one. Dave and Marilyn, we're going to try to get you guys on, and we have about 8 minutes left in the program. Great discussion, and again, we appreciate everybody's opinion. We'll be right back. Shooby-dooby-dooby-doo-dah day. I forgot that was just a 1-minute timeout. All right, let's get back to the phones. And let's see, we have all sorts of folks who want to weigh in this morning. Dave, another Dave. Like, this is our fourth Dave today. Good morning, Dave.
Yeah, but I'm the oldest.
There you go. What's up, sir?
Well, I got like 3 things to mention.
All right.
First of all, not one of your callers today has said anything about the Kurds. The Kurds have the metal to destroy ISIS if we will arm them instead of the crappy Iraqi government, which ain't worth a hoot, okay? Then these so-called pinprick airstrikes that we're conducting, we ought to increase them and start using napalm on these columns of ISIS vehicles, okay? And finally, in the United States, we ought to do what Pam Geller did, and it's like drawing out a boil. You draw it out, and then you pierce it, okay? That's what that cop did in Garland, Texas. He popped those two turkeys right in the head, and that's where they needed to go. And I think if we draw them out here, then we can eliminate them. All 171 of them, I believe there are. So if it's not a cop that's very capable with his handgun, then how about a sniper? American sniper?
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's get Marilyn on the line. Marilyn, go ahead.
Okay. The biggest threat to our national security is that man that's in the White House right now and the people who vote for people like him. And we're in big trouble. I am for our military being the policemen of the world. I mean, look what's happened when we have pulled out and disengaged. The world is on fire. We just have to have not corrupt people in charge of the military and not weakening our military by using it as a social experiment. And we don't have the draft. People are volunteering to go. We need to take care of them when they get back. And if we wait until this all blows up on our soil, we'll have to institute the draft again. And I don't think the left wants that. So the left needs to re-examine their souls, their selves, their minds, and their own will, and open their eyes about who they're voting for.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn. Appreciate your call.
You know, I think we had an attack on our soil, and you know what happened? People volunteered in larger numbers than normal. People like Aaron Flint from earlier in the show, and many of the great servicemen and women that died and that we're going to be grateful for, not only over this weekend, but for the rest of our lives.
All right, let's get Lucy on the line. Lucy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hi, I know I'm kind of going back here to 2008, but do you remember the debate that everybody said Romney kind of lost with Obama? And during that debate, I think is when Romney said something about leaving troops behind, leaving people behind in Iraq so that we would have some kind of a protection there so that it wouldn't all start all over again.
Sure.
What did Romney call that?
Do you remember what did Romney call that? Do you remember?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Was it an occupying force or what?
It was an occupying force, but I think he used another word, and for some reason, I think that's the debate that Romney lost, when indeed it should have been probably.
Is this the Candy Crowley debate where she stepped in and said that the president never said that or whatever? It turned out he had.
Something, yeah, and he seemed like such a big wig and everything, and all this special wording and everything. But Romney had a point there to keep an occupied force there, and had he done that, had Obama done that, or if Romney would have been president, we would still have Iraq in safe hands.
You know, it's really fun. You make a great point. Everybody should go back and watch those old debates.
Yeah.
Not only on Iraq, but he said a lot of salient things about what Russia was going to do too.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Okay, but I just wanted to make that point. You guys are doing an awesome job. I love your show. I listen to it almost every single day. So
well, just thank heaven
I'm listening.
Just be thankful you don't have to watch it. Thanks, Lucy. All right.
I got a post here for Matt to you, Peter.
Okay.
So listen up.
All right, I'm ready.
Peter, as an American, you are entitled to your opinion on things in the military. Hell, your family background makes you more qualified than the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, I appreciate that, but in all humility, sometimes I find it really difficult to go into areas where I don't have any experience. So anyway, Alan, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. There's one factor here that needs to be brought into this. The president has been bringing in Muslims from Yemen and Somalia and other places in the Middle East by the hundreds of thousands. We don't know how many, but I've heard at least 300,000 of these people have been brought in here without any sort of background checks, and we don't know where they are now. So you think it can't happen here? Maybe we better start looking around.
All right, Alan. Thanks, man. Appreciate the call. All right. Wow. We are a minute and a half away. So if we have a quick call, 721-1290, we'd love to hear from you. If not, we We have a Friday show coming. Of course, big Memorial Day. We will not be here, by the way, on Memorial Day.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the morning news a little bit, but
yeah, we'll have some drop-in news, and then we'll be covering some of the 11 Memorial Day services that Missoula has become famous for, thanks to Susan Campbell-Renault and the folks at the United Veterans Council, covering some of that. But hopefully, all of our listeners will be out there enjoying the beautiful Memorial Day weekend. And as you are camping, or as you are boating, or as you are fishing, or whatever you're doing, I hope you'll pause on Memorial Day just to say thank you to those who gave their lives, the ultimate sacrifice for their country. We have another Dave. Okay, Dave, we have about 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Just want to tell you guys that I appreciate the show from today, and I wish you had more of them. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the call. More of what?
More shows?
More shows? Longer shows?
It'd be fun. People want to really kill us, I guess.
Okay, I think we have just enough to keep people from getting sick.
What do you think?
Every
4
day.
Think is talking? Is that enough for you,
No,
Peter?
I think
you think you need more?
I think, never mind. I think people would go,
thanks, but no thanks.
all right. And again, just as a quick aside, thanks to all the folks from Missoula Children's Theater and all the volunteers, Special Olympics. You guys made that ceremony last night absolutely terrific. And to my co-host, Austin Hurd, he was the star. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.